What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. This is a 2022 Ride 1UP Core 5. This is a commuter style bike, and this bike was given to me to do a review on, but these are going to be my unbiased words as usual. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get on the trail, talk all about its shortcomings and its major pros, and if this budget-friendly bike is something worth it to buy. So let's hit the trail, and we'll hit up the office, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Alright, so now that we're back at the office, let's talk a little bit more about the Ride 1UP Core 5, as well as my personal thoughts on the commuter style bike, and how I really think that this fine niche has really broadened its way out there, not only in the electric bike world, but all across cycling. So let's get into this bike, let's break it down, and first starting with the frame. So this frame is made out of 6061 alloy. The fact that this bike comes with an internal headset at this price point is actually pretty shocking, because a lot of bikes I've reviewed on my channel have external headsets, which means those bearings are exposed to the elements a lot more and a lot easier than an internal headset like you see here. Plus, that sleek head tube look looks really good on this bike. So the total weight of this bike is 49 pounds with a weight capacity of 275. Now this frame's dimensions reaches a wide variety of riders, ranging from 5'6" to 6'4". I'm 6 foot tall. With the adjustable seat, it made for a pretty comfortable ride. Now speaking of comfort, this bike has no suspension. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have a very comfortable ride with the Kenda tires that are on here. Now I kept a pretty high PSI in these tires to be able to keep less rolling resistance when riding on a path like I was riding. That way I could keep the most momentum up with the least amount of work. Now a lot of the parts you see on this bike will be seen on a lot of other bikes out there, except for a few things I'm going to note right now, especially when it comes to the geometry of what's on this bike. The handlebars, the seat, the overall stance, and the ergonomics of this bike will make this a much more comfortable ride, and I'm going to explain how. Now looking at the handlebars, they're 50 millimeters in rise and 640 millimeters in width. There's a little bit of back sweep there, which is also a really good touch because you don't want a flat bar on these bikes. A lot of the old commuters would have flat bars, which then in turn your body weight would be leaning more forward, and which not only could be more dangerous when you're traveling at a high rate of speed and you slam on the brakes, but it's not as comfortable on your upper back. So with that little bit of back sweep and these flat ergonomical grips, makes it for a much more comfortable ride. Now, like I said, you want to be more upright, not leaning forward, not leaning back. You don't really want to put too much stress on your body. And that's where I think the geometry of this bike and the handlebar sweep combined really makes it a comfortable ride. Now moving over, we'll talk a little bit about the display and simplification of it and how a lot of other e-bike companies are using it, not only because it's really easy to use, but the fact that there's really not many moving parts when it comes to a plug-and-play system like this. You have the really easy access to the 5 pedal assist options you have there, your speedometer's on there, and your mileage to be able to see how far you're going. Alright, so the shifter system on this bike is the Shimano 7-speed. And this Shimano 7-speed is seen on a lot of different electric bikes all across the board. And on this bike, I was kind of expecting maybe something a little bit more upgraded, maybe undershifting, where you don't necessarily need to take your hand and kind of adjust it to be able to shift up at that top section of the grip. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like a thumb shift underneath the grip would be really, really nice, going up and down. That'd be a nice feel. And it wouldn't really tick the price up too much. I think I would actually pay the extra money to be able to have that feature on the bike. The 7-speed option is definitely a really good option. I just feel like that's only one little area that I think was a shortcoming on this bike. But I think overall, it doesn't make it to where I wouldn't purchase the bike. It just makes it to where these are just things I really wish it had after riding it. Now the Shimano Shifter system is married to the Shimano Atlas derailleur and a Shimano cassette. This whole cassette system, I didn't have to touch at all. I didn't have to tune it. Right out of the box, it shifted perfectly. So I do have to say, after 50 miles or so, I haven't had any issues with any cable stretching. Not to say that that won't happen. You should also maintain your bikes over time. I think maybe I'll do like a 250-mile checkup, tighten up all the cables, and make it good to ride. I know we talk about the brakes next, but I feel like I need to talk about the brakes after I talk about the motor and the top speed, because I have a gripe with the brakes. And this is usually a common thing that I complain about with these type of bikes. But there's a good reason. There's a lot of power with this bike. Let's talk about the motor. So this motor is a 750 watt motor that travels at 28 miles per hour. Now with the 48 volt 10.4 amp hour battery, That's a lot of power to be propelling this bike. And usually my biggest problem when you have a lot of power is they don't have the correct stopping power. Now, I'm not saying these brakes don't work at all. They do work great, but I'm just the type of person that I feel like if I'm riding, I want to be able to stop on the dime. And let's talk a little bit more about the brakes and what I think need to be changed out over time, or maybe you guys will be okay with it. So these brakes are Tektro 160mm mechanical disc brakes. Now, mechanical disc brakes are pretty good, but like I said, if you're having this much power in a motor propelling you at top speeds of 28 miles per hour, these brakes don't stop. Like, they don't skid. I have to tell you that. They will not skid for you. Maybe if I fine tune them. Now, I've had to do that in the past, two mechanical brakes, tune them to make them skid and stop on the dime. Otherwise, I feel like I'm squeezing both of them and it's just gradually making me come to a stop. Now, this is something I always say bike manufacturers should upgrade, especially if you have a powerful motor system like this. You want to get hydraulic disc brakes for something that's this powerful. I know a lot of you guys might disagree with that, especially at this price point. Would you be able to put hydraulic disc brakes on this? Absolutely. For the extra, let's just say $4 or $5 per bike, I think I would spend that money, even $10 to $12 more, because they're not using top tier hydraulic disc brakes on a lot of these other bikes that I ride. They're just using average everyday hydraulic disc brakes, and they are night and day compared to mechanical disc brakes. Now, it also could be the rotor size. Maybe upgrading from the 160mm to 180mm might actually help. I don't know, time will tell on that. Maybe I'll swap these out to be able to see if 180mm would do the trick, but I'm pretty sure moving to hydraulic disc brakes actually would do the job. Now, speaking of power, let's talk about the controller system that's used on this bike. The controller on this bike is a 48 volt, 22 amp controller with a potential output of 1000 watts, which is actually pretty good. Like I said, for this price point, there's a lot to really take in from this price point, and it kind of bums me out that they didn't really cut corners on this end, but they cut corners on the brakes. You never want to cut corners on the brakes because those are the things that actually really matter, not only to keep yourself safe, but the people around you. Now, the throttle on this is a left side throttle, which is good. I know a lot of people always like to complain that, why are they having it on the left side? Well, to avoid any confusion, see, the right brake is your rear brake. The left brake is your front brake, at least here in the United States. Now, some companies will do a throttle system on the right with a rear brake system on the left. That kind of confuses a lot of people. Both the thumb brake being on the left, I think it makes it pretty easy. So overall, the bike is actually pretty comfortable to ride. The saddle was okay. I mean, it was plush. I felt like after about 10 miles or so, my butt started to go numb. But the adjustable side of it with the Pro Max quick release actually made for a really good touch where I could really get that full leg extension to make it as comfortable as I possibly could. And with that being said, no bike is going to be extremely comfortable after riding it for 10 to 15 miles, especially if you're not wearing the proper shorts to be able to, I guess, keep your butt from going numb. So this bike is a great commuter style bike for going maybe to work, go pick up some groceries, or just have an everyday ride out there. So 10, 12, maybe 15 miles is actually not bad with this current setup. Now, some of the things I will be upgrading will be the seat, the hydraulic brakes. If I can't find any rotors that are 180mm that will fit this bike, I will be upgrading to hydraulic disc brakes. That's just one of the things I love to do, be able to keep the bikes running really smooth and also stopping on the dime. So if you guys are interested in the Ride 1UP Core 5, click the link in the description below, check out the website, look at all the description, see if that is something that you guys would be into. If you guys have any other questions about this bike, I'll try my best to answer them in the comments below. If you guys have any other suggestions for future bikes you want to see on this channel, put them in the comments below. I've got a lot of bikes I'm going to be reviewing here in the coming weeks. So with that being said, if you guys like this video, drop a like. If you love it, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one.